And alligators right away, come away, right away, come away. Where cotton's king and men are chattels, Union boys will win the battles right away, come away, right away, come away. We'll all go down to Dixie, away, away. Each Dixie boy must understand that he must mind his Uncle Sam away, away. We'll all go down to Dixie, away, away. We'll all go down to Dixie. I wish I was in Baltimore. I'd make secession traitors roar right away, come away, right away, come away. We'll put the traitors all to rout. I'll bet my boots we'll whip them out right away, come away, right away, come away. We'll all go down to Dixie, away, away. Each Dixie boy must understand that he must find his Uncle Sam away, away. We'll all go down to Dixie, away, away. We'll all go down to Dixie.
Welcome to WYCD Wicked, that stands for What You Can Do. How are y'all doing? Rex Trek, hello. John Bailey, good to see you. Having a drink, says John Bailey, and smoking some ganja, enjoying the live stream. Oh, I'll join you shortly on both counts, my friend. Boomer, fully toked and checking in. Evening. Oh, I love it. I love it. Oh, look, it's a random stream. This is, I do this from time to time. The normal show is, of course, at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard on Monday through Saturday. But once in a while, I just want to do some stuff a little bit different, if only for the sake of stretching the old gams. I was listening quite recently to a gentleman I enjoy by the name of Vosh, and he was debating some folks who... I'll do the intro. Let me just explain this in its entirety, straight out the bat. I'm going to record this. I'm optimistic. Why not? I was listening to a fella I quite enjoy recently by the name of Vosh, and he was debating in a friendly manner, frankly, the way I hope to have one day on this very channel. He was debating some lefties. And they were a couple of young bucks. And they ended up having, Vosh and these young bucks, they ended up having a conversation which I hear once every decade on the left, and I wanted to drop in my 2 cents here and get your opinion on it. Because we keep having this conversation, and no good ever comes of it. Because I think, personally, that we are missing the opportunity. We're missing the point, certainly, but also the opportunity it presents. When people feel this way, and I mean both the way Vosh feels and the way these young guns feel, then we have an opportunity that we always fail to take advantage of. Now we can, but we need to change what happens in this conversation. So let's have a look at it. It's a big, long, daunting video. If you want to hear the whole thing, links in the description, but they cover just about everything I think needs to be covered in the very first segment. So that's what we're going to look at.
You from who I would consider to be your contemporaries is that you're both actually human beings, which is not how I feel about a lot of other people I have this disagreement on.
Yeah, well, we try and be, look, I mean, everybody considers themselves to be a reasonable person. I guess it's not much of an entry point to be like, well, I consider myself to be a pretty reasonable human, a pretty personable guy. But I mean, I guess I could just see multiple angles on the third party strategy thing. And that's why I wanted to, kind of broach this with you, Vosh. Back in 2020, I think I was sympathetic to a lot of the arguments that you're about to present to our audience, given the, tremendous threat of, Donald Trump returning to office, obviously in the wake of COVID-19, that was all, on the forefront of everybody's minds. He had basically not handled one of the most, destructive viruses of all, our entire lifetime, going back over 100 years. He was, careless in every international conflict that we got into. We could go into the litany of problems of Donald Trump. And as a result of that, I was like, look, guys, I don't have any very kind words to say about Joe Biden, but I'm going to go ahead and pull the lever for the guy, given the fact that I think that he might do a couple of key issues that there's do things I agree with on, certain key issues, that Donald Trump was just absolutely unwilling to kind of consider, to unwilling to go down the road of. Obviously, one of the chief things that I was interested in with Joe Biden, grasping at threads. He's not a perfect candidate, obviously, but I thought that he would do a better job at things like getting back into the Iran deal. Donald Trump practically nuked our relationship with Iran. Obviously, there was the extrajudicial assassination of Qasem Soleimani. There was the appointment of John Bolton, who has wanted nothing throughout his entire career than conflict with Iran, etc. So I thought that Joe Biden would be able to come in and shore that up, potentially rejoin the Iran nuclear deal, which was a accomplishment of the Obama and Biden administration that I actually thought was good. He abandoned that. He abandoned the $15 minimum wage, was unwilling to literally do the most pen stroke work of firing a Senate parliamentarian to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. He opened up offshore drilling in natural areas more than even Donald Trump had. He didn't end Title 42 until, 6-7 weeks ago. It feels like, that was longer than Donald Trump had the brutal immigration policy enforced, even though it was at the height of the pandemic at that time. These list of things lead me to feel like the minutia between Joe Biden and, again, we said it on a clip that I think you've reacted to. I'm not here to make the case that, Joe Biden is as bad or worse than Donald Trump. I do not believe that. I believe that he is clearly the lesser evil candidate. But I also don't believe that with the timeline that we have, continuously supporting the lesser evil candidate is going to yield the results that I think all three of us would like.
Okay. So I just want to rephrase this, boil down this guy's stance, because I don't think it's an unreasonable one. You should know that up front. I don't think he's wrong. I just think that what he thinks he'll accomplish, he won't accomplish. And I've seen us make this mistake in a bunch of different forms. But here's his argument as I understand it. Joe Biden, he concedes, is a better president than Donald Trump. However, Joe Biden has shown a frustrating unwillingness to deal with some of the issues he could deal with simply by signing executive orders. Or not even executive orders, simply by signing standard, regular presidential decrees. And we're out of time. When it comes to global warming, we're out of time. And the brutal reality is that they are correct. We are. If we don't take drastic action immediately, look, it's not even a question of whether we're going to suffer. We're going to suffer. We, the human species, dropped the ball on this. The ball has been dropped. We need to start scrambling to pick it up because it's rolling away. We will never again have the ball, I'm going to stick with this analogy, I guess, as we once knew it, if we don't scramble for it now. They're correct. They are correct. And that much I agree with. However, let's hear Vosh for the other side of that, because ultimately this is their justification for running a third-party candidate. And ooh, boy, that's where we part ways. It's not it, and this is what it's like to disagree with people on the same side as you. It's not a matter of us disagreeing about what the problem is or what the stakes are. It's disagreeing about how to handle it. I think a third party is a terrible idea. Let's hear how Vosh tries to talk to these fellas about it.
Maybe giving birth to grandchildren that get to see a post-climate society in the year 2080. You know what I mean? Maybe not having to pay $6,000 a month for rent if you live in an urban epicenter, right? Because at the rate.
Also, side note to Vosh, it may look like he is being disrespectful when he fiddles with things. As a well-known fiddler of things myself, I can only say that at least in my body language is actually when I am listening very closely to something. For whatever reason, if there are things in the vicinity that require fiddling with in some manner, in order to give my full mind to the person who is talking, the fiddling must be done. It just has to be done. So don't look at him too harshly for that. He would have done fine in the days of pure radio.
That things are going, so much displacement is going to occur both internationally as a result of the aforementioned climate change, but also domestically as the cost of living goes up in a way that Joe Biden is absolutely unwilling to intervene on. So just to kind of start the discourse, that's kind of where I'm coming at all of this on. Vosh, like, how would you try and present to me that I should still vote for Joe Biden anyway in the face of all of those lack of accomplishments and not a candidate like Cornel West, who I think is much more on the same page as me politically?
Well, leaving aside any criticisms I have for Cornel West, of which there are at least a few, the broader argument to me is just that it's not really a choice we have in the matter. Ultimately, any positive outcomes we're going to get for this country and its political future will be dictated by the interests of the working class, and at the moment, we have to meet the working class where they are. The vast majority of people in this country consider political engagement in this country to be limited to a discussion between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, or the Democrats and the Republicans. I don't think that we can skip a step and jump right on over to Cornel West, especially when the system is electorally rigged against third parties. And our best bet is to continue to use the potential viability of the Democrats to hold back the tide of fascist power taking. And in so doing, hopefully we can, as an additional step, try to warm them up to better ideas. I think Bernie Sanders did a great job of this, simultaneously bolstering the Democratic Party while also introducing people to more radical ideas within it. But we don't really have the luxury of handing anything over to Trump or the GOP. They're openly anti-democracy. Trump just said he'd suspend the Constitution. Every candidate but Trump is worse than Trump. DeSantis is worse than Trump. Vivek is worse than Trump. He's the best case scenario in the GOP, and he's also not acceptable. It's not a luxury we have to say, well, we can leave this up on a shot. We can leave it to a lark while we play around with our better options. I think we have to work on what reaches the most people most effectively, which is why I'd be more positively inclined to Cornel West if he'd ran as a Democrat. I know the Dems are not keen on a primary this time around, but I think he could have reached a lot more people than if he'd, gone the road that he did.
Yeah, well, first of all, I wanted to say
Just wanted to chime in to say those are my feelings exactly. To the point that I have been frankly referring to these third-party runs as primary challenges, because that is almost exactly what they are. I honestly wonder if Cornel West has any intention of actually having his name on the ballot when it comes time for the general election. I would hope not. And I've just been assuming that he is smarter and also less selfish than that. But as Mars Falcon puts it very well, he says, Vanguard makes my head hurt. I despise the LARPy left. Not understanding how the world works is dangerous when one has a platform. That's it exactly. And for that reason, it's why I'm flummoxed by Cornel West these days, and I really hope he's not going to actually appear on the ballot. But, got to take him at his word. He says he is. So, Christ, here we go. Let's hear their response to Vosh so far. I'm going to let most of the rest of this play because it's just the first segment we're looking at. We're about halfway through it. I want to hear their back and forth. They go into detail on their points in the rest, but they basically say everything right in this first chunk.
that I'm actually not opposed to the idea of Dr. Cornel West running as a Democrat. There have been a couple people that have posited the idea. I think there was a Jacobin article written saying that Cornel should run as a Democrat, take advantage of the primary. And some people were like dunking on that article and its author. I thought that that article was perfectly reasonable. I understand why Cornel West doesn't want to run in the Democratic Party primary, but ultimately it's not something that I think would necessarily make his campaign any less viable. For sure, if anything, it would only make it more viable and would only give him more attention in the media, more access to mainstream media spaces in which he can, deliver his message and kind of have a megaphone to speak to the American people. But that being said, he decided to run as a Green Party candidate, not in the Democratic primary. So I think that's kind of where we have to analyze the situation from. And as far as the Democratic primary goes, there actually is a candidate that Zach and I are supporting in that primary as well. We're both huge fans of Marianne Williamson and what she's bringing to the conversation. I think in many ways her candidacy comes close to embodying the essence of the progressive movement that Bernie Sanders started and the progressive socialist message that he kind of became so successful because of, right? And honestly, one of the most depressing things for me to watch happen as a progressive political commentator has been the dissipation of energy around policies like Medicare for All in the wake of the Bernie Sanders campaign ending in 2020. Bernie Sanders proved to us that via electoralism, I think even in the form of a long shot campaign, you really can move the ball forward. You can normalize progressive policies like socialized healthcare and massively increase public support and enthusiasm for said proposals, just like Bernie Sanders did before he even really had a chance of winning, right? I think it's hard to get people really excited about progressive activism, specifically when it relates to kind of depressing subject matters like climate change, for example. But I think it's a lot easier to get people excited about and paying attention to a presidential campaign. I've always said that progressive presidential campaign is like a rising tide that lifts the boats of progressive activism, just like we saw with Bernie. All these activist movements like for healthcare, et cetera, they got a big, huge help, like a big lift thanks to the enthusiasm that Bernie generated for those causes and those movements. And that's why I think it's really important that the left continues to engage in electoralism in presidential elections, and that our ideas have a marked presence in the debate surrounding the presidential election, which again is when most people kind of start tuning in and actually start paying attention to politics. That's why Zach and I have been so enthusiastic and supportive of Marianne Williamson, who I do think comes close to embodying that essence that Bernie Sanders represented. Like I said, that progressive message, her platform is very similar to his and in some ways even better, but despite the fact that Marianne, as well as RFK Jr., who I'm not a fan of, despite the fact that they're polling at 10% and 20% respectively, the DNC is completely refusing to sanction debates, in essence, refusing to sanction a primary at all. And meanwhile, they're talking about what a threat to democracy the Republicans represent. They're not even entertaining the idea of democracy when it comes to their own party electorate. I think that's pretty crazy. And I think that it leaves us no choice but to engage in the presidential electoral process via the only other means that's left to us, which is to enter the general election as a third party candidate to try to get on the debate stage that way, because the issues that we're fighting for as progressives are simply too pressing for us to take 4 years off and stand idly by as they coronate Joe Biden again, who's a feeble personification of establishment politics, who, despite being slightly better than some of his more neoliberal counterparts in the Democratic Party, still completely fails to meet the moment on the front of climate change, income inequality, ballooning police budgets, the military budget, and more. Tens of thousands of Americans continue to die every year under Joe Biden's watch due to lack of health insurance. And despite the fact that Biden promised to deliver a public option for the people while he was campaigning, he hasn't mentioned it since getting elected. Without Cornel West as a left flank candidate representing a thorn in the side of Joe Biden, who will call him out and hold him accountable for his failures, Vosh? Who will?
Okay. True is what I said earlier. Let's just jump on in there. First, reading some comments. Michael Skiles, I think timing is important. And while I certainly welcome ideas around having a third party, the time is not now. I was on board with Bernie in 2016, while at the same time, I thought it was bad timing. And that kind of touches on, I think, these guys' feelings. They feel, if I understand correctly, they feel that this is what they hear every single election. The time is never right, and we are now out of time. People, they're not wrong. Tens of thousands of Americans do die every year because of the way we have chosen to set up our health care. Which means every year that we don't do something is 10,000 deaths we carry on our conscience. So I understand, is all I'm saying. I understand. What concerns me is the first part of your point there. The way this guy has phrased it, it makes me worry that he's planning on doing an edgier version of the same mistake we have done this whole time. The answer is not to look for someone we can finally trust to leave unattended for 4 years. No such person exists. Even Cornel West, you put him in office. Somehow, let's just imagine for a moment that he actually wins. He won't. You put him in office for 4 years. If you leave him unattended, you will be deeply depressed. The answer is to put enough people in power who will do what we demand. Then pressure the hell out of them every week. A president can either sign a bill or they can veto it. Those are the options they have, really. When it comes down to their standard daily work, those are their options. Do they sign the bill passed by Congress or do they veto it? Congress has to pass them first. If the bill was passed by their own party, the president is going to have a hard time vetoing it. It'll make him look bad. So, what happens when you have a president, an incumbent president, win in a landslide, win a bunch of House and Senate seats? Their party just snatches them up left and right. Well, they call that a mandate. They say, I've been given a mandate by the American people, and they want me to do Democrat things. That's what Biden will say. And that's fine. Let him have it. Let him have it. Because if we have not learned from MAGA yet how to control a party, then we have been wasting our time. That means we get our work started now, and we take the Democrats that we have and we make it clear. You will start acting the way I want you to act, or we will find your replacement in 1 year. Impress me so that we can go to Biden and say, listen, you bleached Irish prune. Don't make us embarrass you by sending this thing up again when we pass a bill. Because then you're going to have to sign it in front of all these people, and they're going to know. They're going to know that we made you. So wear a smile, sign the bill, take your credit, and know your place. That's what we do. Now, that said, you got to give Biden some credit. He is admittedly just now catching up to what you probably knew in 2016. But Trump is a madman, and MAGA is not a voting bloc that respects a clean fight. Which is why Biden is doing this kind of stuff. The White House, says Brian Tyler Cohen on Twitter, is at no lie with BTC. The White House has announced they are putting Biden's name on hundreds of thousands of infrastructure project signs after Republicans started taking credit for projects they voted against. You know, the thing Republicans always do. Whenever something good is done in Washington, it is done by Democrats after having overcome the roadblocks that Republicans throw in their way. And then Republicans go home and pretend like they did it. Irony of ironies. Of course, all Republicans do is try to make life worse for people. So finally, it only took 50 years of being in politics, but finally, Biden has wisened up. He's taken a page out of Trump's book. When we all got the stimulus, you remember those stimmies? We all got our little chunk of cash. Trump signed his name on the checks. It was cheap. It was gauche. It was gross. But it was effective marketing. And this is the kind of cheap shot that I want to see Biden take more and more of. Now, again, this is not speaking to how he will save us from global warming. He won't. He is just the only person who has got a chance of actually being in the White House that we can actually influence. We will have to save ourselves and our families and our descendants from global warming. We will have to. And part of that will be making sure we have a Democrat in the White House. Have a look at this. It's just the CNN article about it. For Biden, taking credit for an improving economy, including jobs and growth made possible by the... Great. Made possible... Son of a gun. All right. For Biden, taking credit for an improving economy, including the jobs and growth made possible by the $1 trillion public works law, has become a political imperative, one that will help determine whether he is reelected to a second term next year. Even as Democrats relish a recent hot streak of positive economic data, they acknowledge it won't benefit Biden politically unless voters begin to associate him with the improvements. Well, let's have a look at these signs. Boom. Project funded by President Joe Biden's... Great. The age of ads. We really... that'll be on our list. Like the grudges, like the dwarves in Warhammer. We need a big book of grudges we're going to deal with that annoy us. when we control it all. Okay. Project funded by President Joe Biden's bipartisan infrastructure law. Look at that. He's also being a gentleman. He's reaching out a hand. I don't think he should be a gentleman. President Joe Biden's infrastructure law. Okay, but you know what? Whatever. It's pleasing. If it makes a couple of centrists vote for Biden, fine. It gets even better. Look at that. It's a picture of a field. The Environmental Protection Agency announced approximately $65 million in funding from President Biden's bipartisan infrastructure law to address cleanup projects at 3 Superfund sites across Montana, including the Upper 10 Mile Creek mining area in Helena. And they put a sign on that too. It is just a field, but it is a field which is not a field of trash. It's not a field of dumped car parts. It's not a field of yada, 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 because of that work, of that legislative work. And Biden is making it visible for the American people. My point is that Biden is capable of learning, and more importantly, he's capable of acting differently than he has. The relevance here being, if he can learn from this, if he can start behaving differently around something like this, he absolutely can and will behave differently around issues like the environment. He's an old politician. Now, that has its downsides, for sure. However, it also has a pretty significant upside. Money is a hell of a lot less tempting to him. It's going to break your heart to go over it again, but he's lost most of his family. Still has a wife, still has a son. Good lad. But the point is, it's not like he's got young kids to provide for. Even the sort of rich set you up with a nice starter company providing for that these folks tend to do. No, he doesn't have to do that. He's interested in legacy. So I believe he can be swayed. But whether you have Cornel West in power or Joe Biden in power, you are still not going to get anywhere unless you get a lot of lefties in the House and in the Senate. That is the work that needs to be done, and it can be started right now. All right, let's listen to Vaush's response. We're gonna finish this up in a second. But I was disappointed in Vaush's response because rather than providing for them an answer about what we should do about it, what he tells them is only why what they want to do won't work. And it doesn't matter that he's right, because his plan is essentially to wait for America to boil, and that's no kind of plan.
Make the moral case against the neoliberalism that he represents. Because if it's not Cornel West, the only other candidate is potentially going to be Joe Manchin, who's not Donald Trump. If he decides to get in the race as an independent candidate or a no labels candidate, then that will represent the Overton window shrinking even more, and less debate, less attention for actual leftist causes that all three of us care about. Who will keep the momentum for policies like a Green New Deal, reparations, Medicare for all, and others alive while Joe Biden and Donald Trump continue to shrink the Overton window? And that's just the question that I most wanted to ask you, Vaush.
Well, there's a lot to get at there, but unfortunately, the answer is, if it's not within the Democratic primary, the answer is you don't get to. That's it. Nothing we do can come at the potential risk of empowering the fascists. Anti-fascism is the #1 ideological priority of everyone who isn't a fascist. It's as simple as that. It's not fair. I'm publicly critical of the
not
Democrats for
wrong.
being so opposed to internal democracy. I've mocked them for being worse about it than the Republicans. But that doesn't change the underlying math. If anything that is done to, as you say, hold the neoliberal accountable, and it won't meaningfully, of course. The Democrats don't care if they lose, and they certainly don't care if an edge case candidate like Cornel West, who almost certainly, based on historical records, won't get 5%, but even if he did, wouldn't make a dent in Joe Biden's viability as a candidate, unless it's to lose against Trump, which is the thing that we cannot allow to happen. If it's not done in the Democrat primary, then that's just the end of it. We can't risk this. I don't think that progressives are going to sleep for 4 years if Joe Biden wins again. There's plenty that we can do within that space. There's plenty progressives have done. Midterms showed that progressives won big, more than we expected, certainly, both in the sense that Republicans lost and the better Democrats won. We've seen wins in places like Chicago on local levels. I think that there's room for a lot of work that can be done. We just have to do it in ways that don't potentially give ammunition or power to our adversaries. I don't think we get another election if the GOP wins again. We don't really have room to mess up on that front.
I guess my follow-up to that, Vosh, would be, what is your end? And maybe you don't have one, but I think that that's kind of the gap here, right? Is I think that, per my mind, let's just engage in a counterfactual. We, show up, everybody votes for Joe Biden, kind of per your argument that you laid out, Vosh, as a denouncement of fascism from the Republican Party in whatever form it takes, Vivek, DeSantis, Donald Trump, who cares, right? And then at that point, you have Joe Biden in his second term, continuing his policy directions as he was engaged with today. And then he passes away and we get Kamala Harris as the VP who takes over and is now the president. And then the next election cycle comes around and they say there's not going to be a primary. It will be Kamala Harris in a similar way as it is right now, where they just decide not to engage in debates. They say, we have our president. This is the first black woman president. This is the person that we're going to go with. And
Can
then
I
again,
answer you preemptively? Because I know what
Sure.
you're getting at.
You're going to just say you'd vote for her, right?
It never ends. We suffer and then we die. If all you can do in an election is push the fascists back for 4 more years, and then you do so, that's a victory. If you have the opportunity in an election to do something more, or a primary candidate to put forward who might be able to do something more, then you do that. And I think we should do that. But ultimately, the fight doesn't end at the ballot box. There are plenty of extra legislative and extra electoral ways to get your political message across. But we have to understand.
And I'm sorry to cut him off there. Look, it's Vosh. He's one of the most popular fellas on the internet, and rightly so. He generally makes good points. And look, he clarifies later on what he was saying there. And I'll sum it up by essentially saying protest movements. And he's not wrong. In fact, I mostly agree with him. But it's not sufficient to tell young bucks like that, who have the kind of energy that we need, who have the kind of mentality that will be required to get this done. It's not acceptable to tell them we don't have a plan for this. Now, again, he's talking electorally, as in purely elections. Okay, I see the point he's making. You got to be real careful about how you communicate that, and we need to avoid the trap we always fall into. That's the losing plan I've seen the left slide into for decades. We do have a better answer than this. If MAGA showed us nothing else, it was how to leverage power in the U.S. government. We've seen what works and what doesn't work. Thank the Lord, violence does not work. Good. Guns are too expensive anyway. I want no part of that. It's also immoral. What does work is heavy use of the primary. Paired, and this is key, paired with telegraphing our votes well in advance of the primary. One thing these fellas didn't make clear, or rather, one thing these fellas forgot about, and the reason their plan will not currently work. Let's say they got Marianne Williamson Williamson, whatever. Marianne Williamson to get 20% of the vote. Ooh, just like she's polling. Ooh, 20% of the vote. I have seen this. Democrats will not view that as a sign that they need to appeal to lefties more. They will see that as a sign that not enough centrists turned out. How do we really motivate those centrists? So here's what we do. The phrase, "This is an issue that will affect my vote in the primaries," written at the top of an email, produces the same reaction in a politician as the bark of an Australian shepherd does in a sheep. That means I need the groups represented by the two of these folks, as well as a whole bunch of others, to start working now to put these animals where we need them to be. The president will not matter nearly as much as having a progressive House and Senate. That is actually easier to make happen. You can get progressives two ways. You can either select one or you can make one. A lot of these politicians, particularly the people in the House of Representatives, which is what we really, really need to win back. We got to hold the Senate, but we got to win back the House of Representatives. A lot of them can be swayed. Just communicate clearly what it is you expect of them to get your vote in the primaries. Right now is the time where they start straightening up and flying right. You got to tell them what that looks like. So if you happen to have an annoying normie Dem representing you now, start emailing them about individual issues. Plenty of times on this show, I will display for you individual issues that it would be a good idea to talk to your representative about. And make sure you tell them that their behavior now is being watched, and your satisfaction with their behavior will affect your, or lack thereof, will affect your vote in the primary. If they don't have a primary challenger, I know what you're doing next November. Yeah, it's that simple. We have got to take this country back. We have to. And I don't mean that even slightly metaphorically. I mean, if we don't, the world cooks. It's us and it's China that are causing the worst of this. Both countries are using the other as an excuse not to do anything. Enough. We need to be grown-ass adults. That means we need to actually be ruthless. Presidency simply cannot be in jeopardy. You cannot play that game. Because the alternative is the end to our ability to affect the system at all. And the good news is, the very people who are currently threatening the system have shown us how we can use the system to increase our own power. So, right now, start harassing your representative. Tell them what they have to do to earn your vote. And make a note. Make a note. See if they do it. If they don't do it, run against them. Or find somebody who you think ought to run against them. And work on their campaign. At the very least, share every post of theirs in social media leading up to voting time. Be an evangelist for them. But that's how you do it. You saw how far right, how not even far right, but how far into QAnon territory. Republicans went when they got terrified of getting primaried. Do the same for the Democrats, but instead of made-up ridiculous issues, it's, global warming and the fate of the planet. Let's see what you all have to say. Wicked Foxy Dragon, good to see you. This is I'm getting heckled for the 9 p.m. thing, but it isn't even 9 p.m. Yeah, I know. I just felt squirrely. Groove Dragon, Canada will have to build the wall if Trump won. Yeah, I'll help you. Jesus. You can tell I'm flustered now. Oh, no worries. Oh yeah, that was a bit of a dark one. Step 1, find the groove. Step 2, groove dragon. You know I'm down. Absolutely. Mars Falcon, groovy baby. We in it now. Dawned on me, the fight also needs to be where a president is supported. Good point. A third-party candidate with no base is stupid politically. As Groove Dragon says, 1,000,000,000% correct. And that is something else about Cornel West, which I hate to break to these fellas. But if Cornel West gets elected doing his, God help me, pro-Russian, listen to me, pro-Russian invader propaganda to appeal to the right, which is what he did upon announcing his running for president. If he thinks he's got a base of populists that are on the left and right, he's going to try to appeal to both of them. That's going to be real destructive. Not good destructive either if you're thinking, oh, but we could use... Nope. Just bad. Just awful. The ability to... When we're selecting a president, we should not be trying to select a strong man of any flavor. We should be trying to select, and hear me out, the weakest wafer we can find. And we should bully them. They should feel a little bit, just a little bit, uncomfortable every moment they are borrowing the chair we lent them in the Oval Office. We should keep them keenly aware that we are mildly annoyed with them and are willing to fire them over almost anything. That should be our goal. Rextrack, hello, good to see you. Let's see. We must stand with Ukraine. Yes, exactly. It's maddening, truly maddening. Sticking with the Biden thing for a second. Climate seemed to be their main concern. So let's talk about that. Biden negotiated with the railway workers. And it's the perfect little microcosm for how shitty centrist Dems and MAGA types work. Biden negotiated with the railway workers. He didn't get, in the first round, everything the railway workers wanted. And so what he did was essentially pause negotiations and forced the railway workers to go back to work. Pretty quickly after that, the Norfolk Southern crash happened. Those very same rail workers who were complaining about safety issues and getting time off and so on and so forth, well, the things they warned about came to pass, and a town got toxic fire burning right on its borders. leaking chemicals into its river. We do not know how long it's going to be before East Palestine, Ohio, recovers. But understand that Trump is the one who made that negotiation necessary in the first place, because Trump is the one that allowed Norfolk Southern to operate its trains as unsafely as they did. Also understand that Biden eventually got those changes made. That the at least some of the changes, let me clarify, that the rail workers were asking for. He was more interested in making sure the trains ran on time and provided money for the oligarchs that owned them. And so we had a train crash. But the train crashes in general were on Trump. So that is a pretty good breakdown of what we have with Joe Biden. If we had Cornel West there, would it have been different? Maybe. But again, let's say that I'm wrong about how to accomplish it. It just doesn't seem likely, is what I'm saying. And he's not going to get elected. I'm sorry. But let's say I'm wrong about how to accomplish the change. The aping MAGA doesn't work. And we got to think of something else. Just ask yourself, would you rather figure out what's going on, or would you rather figure out whatever that thing's going to be that changes things on the timetable that we'll have with a Republican making decisions, or with Joe Biden? I would rather have Joe Biden. It gives us longer. Diana Dean, hey, Wicked Senate and Jake, I'm here and you're live. Well, yes, indeed. Tell you what, I was really only gonna do a couple. I was really just gonna talk about that, but since y'all are here, what the hell? Let's have some fun. Let's do some bonus stuff. Let's make fun of Tim Pool. That's one of my favorite things on earth, is to make fun of Tim Pool. So why not? I don't even really. Oh God, wait, I do remember this. All right, stand by. We're gonna record it because I gotta bust this guy's chops. Well, making fun of Tim Pool is a pretty fun hobby for leftists. Let's crack into it. Tim Pool did this, did a little short. Let's look at it. And what I like about it is that it is a great way to show how Tim Pool just suddenly goes south on everything he talks about. This guy has an amazing ability to be talking about things normally, and then loses it. Let me show you. There it is.
Where video games are already at with this stuff?
Dude, it's crazy.
It used to be Super Mario Brothers. Mario goes in the castle, and text appears. Thank you for saving me, but the prince is in another castle. That was the extent of NPC communication with you. It advanced to games now where you can choose to say something, and then a voice actor's scripted line will speak. That's a great idea. Let's get the mission underway. And you're like, cool. Now, with text to voice and predictive language models, video games have already started. You're wearing a headset, you walk up to the NPC, and you say something like, hey, idiot, ugly, I want to buy some soda. And the NPC goes, who are you calling an idiot? If you want to buy something, be polite. A generated predictive response. We are years away from people saying, I no longer want to live in reality. I'm going to go into this universe where I can tune out, and you're going to be sitting in your living room talking to fake people. Have you guys seen where video games are already at with?
Okay. I mean, all right, so let's just break that down. First of all, the thing he's talking about is accurate. Video games, it's like an interactive play, and a pretty interesting thing, a pretty neat thing that's happening is that they are starting to integrate AI, so that you can have you can have a video game that responds to a unique thing that you say. Just video games, in my opinion, are mostly just trying to recreate the Dungeons and Dragons experience, and we're one step closer. Now you can come up with unique phrases that you can say, and they will be responded to by the game. That's pretty cool. Here's the issue. Tim Pool then uses that to say we're right around the corner from people living in a, what was it? Just a pure digital world. Like people are just gonna go home and not interact with anybody else. I'll play the occasional video game. Let me tell you. What I tend to do in those video games is murder people with swords, or thieve. I often steal things. I'll walk I'll be playing Zelda. I'll walk into a villager's home and smash up a bunch of pots and take the jewels from those pots. My point is, you don't behave in a video game the way you behave around other people. And I don't think that it makes a lot of sense that you would see that advancement and think that you are then just going to no longer desire any human interaction at all. Now, that said, I don't think Tim Pool behaves around other people much differently than he would behave in a video game. I think he goes out of his way to make sure he is surrounded by people that essentially have to act like NPCs for him, that essentially have to do for him what a non-player character in a video game would do. I think with his dorky little skate park and his terrible band, he's just trying to live his personal fantasy, and the people around him can only get in the way. So I think that reveals less about Tim Pool's ability to predict the future, and more about how Tim Pool views other human beings. Oh, good to see you, Scott Ward. Dawned on me, I just want to add my comment above that. Add to my comment above that the EPA really dropped the ball in East Palestine as well, both state and federal. Yeah, they really did. Mars Falcon, that used to be the extent of NPC communication with you. Now I have my own show and share NPC talking points for hours at a time. Tim Pool at the shallow end. Yeah. Dominico, make sure you have good to go at the likes of Nick Fuentes, too. Oh, my God. Nick Fuentes. I'll have a go at him, for sure. I mean, yeah. He's kind of filth. Not kind of. He is obviously filth, but the bizarre protection that does give him is that I'm terrified that at any moment he could drop a word that would make me go and scramble to Oh. Also, if I'm real with you here, like, I don't know. Give me your thoughts here. Does the public have any confusion about who like Nick Fuentes is? Like, I think everybody knows this guy's just a damn Nazi, right? We know this. Maybe not. Man, let me know. I have there's another thing that I want to show you. Speaking of Nazis, that was going to be an intro. Just give me your thoughts on it, and if we dig it, then I'll add it to the lineup for when we occasionally start the show with a fun, quick clip. Sometimes it's fun to highlight just the free stuff that is available online for entertainment purposes. One of my favorite folks to unwind to is called Fredo on TV. And our fella Fredo, he doesn't talk about politics for the most part, but sometimes, once in a while, he covers things that are adjacent to the sort of stuff we talk about. So here's an example of that. See if you can spot what's off about this video.
Let's see if you notice anything else that's out of the order.
Now, before I get started, I just want to say this video was filmed like 5 days ago, okay? 5 days ago, 2023. Now, quick test, okay? No wrong answers, fill in the blank. What caught your attention? There was a lot of stuff in there that, really fucking bomb on the table, pretty sure. Landmine, yeah. But I personally was looking at that, dry clean Ku Klux Klan uniform in broad daylight, Massachusetts.
Here, let's see if you notice anything
God,
else that's out of the order.
Now, before I get started, I just want to say this video was...
Oh, my God. Oh, do I have that messed up? There we go. Oh, my God. Yeah. Klan robe, huh? At least he was selling it. At least he was getting rid of it. I think the proper thing to do that is to bury it in a sewage tank in the ocean. But, fine. At least he's getting rid of it. Christ. We got to make these folks feel a hell of a lot less comfortable. If you're, I don't like that I've apparently lived my life in a way that somebody in Minnesota can have the balls to openly display a Klan robe. They should be nervous about that shit. They should be nervous that somebody will fly off the handle and at a minimum egg their house. So whatever is, all I'll say is this. You see somebody fly in your area, yell at them. You don't have to, and in fact shouldn't do anything more than that, but you are obligated to yell at them. Because that's why. They should feel bad that they live their lives in such a way that they own a Klan robe. So yell at them. Say, just so you know, you're scum, and your whole family's scum, and I'm going to go ahead and hawk a loogie on your lawn right now, and I'm going to look in the eyes when I do it. Because you're filth. That's just established so that they are aware of where we stand. What do they say? Nobody likes Ohio Nazis or whatever the hell. Christ, we need to Jake and Elwood Blues this just a little bit more. Rex Track. I would have asked about it. That's what right-wingers call Chris Cuomo, Fredo. All right, I got to give him credit. That's pretty funny, actually. Oh, Wicked Foxy Dragon. They have no shame, so we cannot do that. Yeah, it's fair enough. I do think we have an obligation to tell them they're bad people, though. Domenico, fortunately, there are the 320 million that are in the good. Need to get them to vote. Yes, absolutely. Michael Skiles, because someone out there just can't have too many. I hope that's not talking about the clan robes, but you're probably right, unfortunately. Zix1326. I can't play that kind of character. Never have. Not fond of GTA, for example. I tend to NG characters. Yeah, are neutral good? Yeah, I same. I don't actually ever choose the villainous choices, but I do thieve in video games. I absolutely thieve, and one might have to have a view at my morals based on that. I don't know. I just do. I do enjoy the art of the Skyrim B&E job. Christy Zolkowski, sheesh, tell us how you really feel, Jake. Oh, yeah. Call me crazy. I know I'm kind of a wild lefty, but I just can't get along with those Nancys. Michael Skiles. You can hear it now. My heritage. Yes. Yeah, well, my heritage is pushing a bayonet through the guts of Rebs. So I also embrace my heritage. You rebel scum. Well, okay. That's probably a show that... everything said was said for entertainment purposes, even if I 100% mean it. This has been WYCD Wicked. Thanks for hanging out with me on a Sunday. Had a lot of fun looking at clips with y'all. I would stress per that when we were actually talking seriously, per that debate in the beginning, just if you come across people talking about, in my opinion, throwing away their vote to a third party, don't do it. But don't do what Vosh did either. Make it clear that there is absolutely a path to change, but it's going to involve a strategy we haven't really tried, which is trying. We're going to have to put in the work, and we're going to have to do it after 2024. But if we want to get started now, we can and should. We have to make sure that we have a progressive set of tools to work with. We have to think of them like tools. We have to make the people who are in office now understand that they do not hold office without progressive support, without acting like progressives, without pleasing us, and really make it clear to them that they have no choice. That's how we do this. So take those people who were going to vote third party and convince them instead to harass their representatives. That's the way, in my humble opinion, we start to fix this mess. That has been WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. My name's Jake. I'll see you tomorrow at 9 p.m.